What do you make of the changes in the media landscape or the evolutions of media as such?
There are two major dynamics that are easily observable and that are defining the current landscape. The first has been ongoing for a while. It's the disappearance or the breaking down of traditional journalism. Investigative journalism as such has become a negligible part of the media ecosystem, surviving mostly in some individual publications in book or documentary form, and much less as a traditional and central part of print media or even TV news cycle. It's become much more difficult to sustain financially, and also the public attention span is much shorter and the news cycle is much faster. So those are some of the factors contributing to the disappearance and marginalization of traditional and especially investigative journalism, but also the failure of traditional business models for the media, the local media outlets essentially dying out, the national public TV and radio stations becoming they're either coming under pressure and question and distrust from the audiences or being outright defunded, as it's happening in the United States. The exception being states that literally fund the state journalism, essentially monarchies and non-democratic states in general. But in Western traditional democracies, where the media is expected to be diverse and where the government support is relatively minimal, even that sort of both local and national taxpayer-funded journalism is coming under a lot of pressure and disappearing as well. So what we are seeing in terms of financing media is a couple of different trends. First of all, foreign actors trying to acquire stakes or otherwise purchase in whole or in part various media conglomerates. When they fail to do that, they at least try to influence journalism by subsidizing some operations or some media outputs, documentaries and films, individual articles, or editorial lines in publications. Another trend is diversifying journalism with other models, essentially creating a hybrid between subscription-based access and commercial business intelligence or PR-oriented operations. So the same media outlet is performing several different services simultaneously. One is news reporting or news summaries, two it may be entertainment or PR or business intelligence or some other communication-related service that is more lucrative than traditional reporting or traditional journalism. The third trend is the shift from facts-based reporting, however subjective or objective, to opinion journalism. For instance, the free press media, which has become extremely popular in the United States, combines elements of investigative journalism with opinion journalism. So while the columnists generally task themselves with looking into controversial issues and exposing various controversial stories that go under the radar in the traditional media, that is done in the style that is very much a column style and opinion column style and far less facts-based traditional reporting. And that's becoming a very much preferred model for various types of journalism. Finally, the fourth trend is more of a business trend than a style trend, which is essentially media conglomerates buying up one another and essentially creating huge, dominant, mega models of journalism. And we are seeing the cycle through the lens of the current bid to purchase Warner Brothers. Time Warner at one point was also ended up being acquired in a major merger deal. now we are seeing Netflix, Paramount, which is linked to assorted international, mostly Middle Eastern funding, as well as Jared Kushner and other Trumpian characters and their involvement, and possibly even YouTube competing for the purchase of Warner Brothers, and potentially part of the bid is also around in whole or in part the sale of CNN. Trump is essentially looking to force a sale of CNN, preferably to Paramount. That is so far has not been decided upon. But this trend of these major mega acquisition deals that end up consolidating so many of previously separate and independently operating media systems is creating an illusion of choice, whereas in reality, most media operations will at this rate end up in the hands of a very small number of people, companies, and interests. And some of those companies will be, at least to some extent, linked to the current US government, because CBS, Paramount, Skydance, that have essentially merged into one entity, they're all controlled by people who have the approval of President Trump or are linked to him in some way, through business, through family, or through personal connections. If Paramount succeeds in purchasing Warner Brothers, and possibly CNN, that'll be yet another couple of major companies now linked to the same conglomerate, all linked to the US government, at least informally. And another controversy on top of that is another trend, which is the streamers trying to buy up traditional companies, meaning Netflix, Amazon, and others, in a race to buy up media. And some are describing this process as a complete collapse of traditional media in favor of streamers controlling everything. I don't know whether it will ultimately affect anything, because Netflix, which started out as a streaming company, is now also producing its own traditional style movies, and is creating a hybrid model where movies are screened for a short period of time before being streaming, and sometimes are streamed and screened simultaneously, but ultimately not sure that it will regulators and not just the public. And there is less of an appetite to allow unregulated mergers of mega companies into these huge media conglomerates. What that means for the future of our consumption of entertainment is news remains to be seen. So far, however, infotainment cycles are becoming, I think, tiresome for many people, and I think there's actually a growing demand to return to some form of more traditional reporting, journalism, and perhaps a separation of entertainment media from news.